Got my two screens. Welcome everyone to another week of the webinar, creating and monitoring functional landscapes. As I read that, I've got to thank the sponsors, the Australian Government, Future Drought Fund, and the TesFarm Hub. One of the things that, as I was setting up for this, I read that creating and monitoring functional landscapes. So I'm just going to go through and make sure and either yell out while I'm going through it or whatever. But are you confident to go anywhere? I would say nearly anywhere on the planet, but I'm not good on tropical areas, uh, just because I haven't done it. But anywhere sort of like, so Mongolia, Somalia, Brazil, yeah, I can work in all those areas and I can create a functional landscape. I just want you to know that there's a process, and that's what we've worked on. And just make sure that I've covered off on that, so that you're not sort of saying, "Oh, could I do that or not?" You'll go, "I know how to do that." Yeah, it'll take trials and safe to fail trials and stuff, but you know how to do it. So make sure that you know how to do it, and then what it looks like, because that's sort of the key for um, shifting the whole way we manage grazing and land management. So I'll keep coming back to it. I'm actually on in Wurundjeri country at the moment, in Melbourne, just out near the airport, but typically in the Gunai Kurnai country. So just acknowledging elders past, present, and emerging, and just how good the land was when Europeans turned up. I used to say white fella turned up, and my daughter and son told me to stop it. And I didn't know why, but I knew I had to stop it from the way they said it. So, um, yeah, I asked their opinion, and they said don't do it. So, okay, yeah. So, we're going to increase landscape function to increase biodiversity. We're going to use landscape function as the foundation of everything we do. Increased well-being scores is harder, and we haven't got back to that. And we skimmed some of the profit stuff, and I've got Rob's sort of weak link in the chain of production material. So we'll just quickly go through that and cover some other topics as well. Um, you need to really have in your brain that if people say to you, it doesn't make money, is there enough land? All their arguments are unconvincing, because it's really clear that we produce enough food to feed 10 billion people at the moment. There's approximately 7.88 billion in the planet. It's got nothing at all to do with the amount of food we produce. It's to do with um, people being sort of, say, dispatched, not in their own countries. Can't think of the word I'm after. And, it's about fairness and money. There's a whole heap of things that we need to be thinking about. But at the moment, we produce more than enough food. Um, so, like when anyone says to me, how are we going to feed the 9 billion? I always do the smart aleck thing and say, I think it's a non-problem, because mammals stop breeding when they don't get fed. But the only trouble is we'll kill one another as we do that. So I like to finish with on a happy up note at the end of it. So, so it's unconvincing. It doesn't work, but people sort of just trying to stick to things that they know and run in tribes so that they feel safe in that tribe. And I understand that. It's not sort of something that burns strongly in me, but I see it in other people a lot. I don't really want to stand out, because we have a habit in groups and things like that, and I get this a fair bit, is that the banana that leaves the bunch gets skinned. So and sort of lately I've been pushing back a bit against the skinning, which always ends up badly. But yeah, so we need the land to be covered, and a combination of litter cover, annual cover, and large mature perennial base cover that are really dense. I think the world changes once you get up to 20% of each hectare covered with mature perennial grass bases. There's like a complete flip. You can make enough litter to cover the intertussock space. You've got enough perennial plants to hold that litter in place so it's not sliding around the environment and shifting and washing away. But you've got to get that mature perennial grass bases, and that's also with the surface roughness. You've got to have enough to hold that litter so that you've got this incredibly stable soil surface that you could hit with a fire hose and you wouldn't shift any soil. That's sort of what you've got to be thinking about. How do I make this so stable that, and the litter's wicking in like Velcro into the soil surface and becoming one with the soil, that you could hit it with a fire hose and you wouldn't shift any soil. It also means a really good check is if you drive over over a grassland or a pasture, and you leave two dirty marks in the grass from detaching the soil, the animals will detach the soil surface with their feet. That's not stable enough. So we need to go further. We want the water in, like water's either hit or miss at the moment. It's either all or nothing. It's really, you either get a whole heap and then it's dry and you get a whole heap again. So we need that massive water infiltration. We've had a few rains. Southwest Victoria is really desperate, but sort of East Gippsland, where we are, we've had a few rains and we've used all that water. And then last night we had, I think, 2 to 5 mils, and it was, it's enough to keep us going. We're holding it. We've got low evaporation from bare soil surfaces, that whole thing. And you need that litter decomposing. It needs to be biologically active for the water infiltration and the nutrient cycling. Is that okay? Have I done that to death? I try and do it slightly differently, hoping it triggers something. So, um, but it's really, we need to be thinking about this. Never fails. Landscape function never fails. Some of the ways you do cover cropping, if you don't have landscape function, it'll fail. I said some of this last week. And perennial grasslands are far quicker and more stable and more resilient than any of the cover cropping, any of those things. It is where we need to be. And then once we've got that function, then we build a bit of diversity into it. But it doesn't need to be a much. And as long as you keep all the other components, the tap roots and the clovers, the legumes, I say in total below 5%. And most people, that's a shock, because in Southwest Victoria, we used to aim for over 50% legume clover. So that meant you had 50% bare ground come the autumn break. Because we were Mediterranean, it'd be dry, the clover would all dry off, you'd have all that bare ground, and then you'd get that autumn break rains and you'd lose a heap of topsoil. So, and also I'll talk about soil loss a bit later. The way we manage that soil surface is with recovery, stock density, and plant utilisation. I have not seen in environments that you're able to ramp all three up, you really don't see an upper limit. It just keeps going, it keeps grazing. It's like, I don't know whether people have seen it before. I started to realize I didn't understand about grass and it being sort of too old and rank and feral grass, they'd say in Southwest Victoria, until because we had a property that I'd start grazing round and walk them round the road. And our cows would dive out on that grass that was 12 months and just love it. I thought I was doing a great job, and they would have rather have been on the roadside. So it's just matching rumens, animal types, and everything, so that we can get this function, which we can then build a future on. If you get landscape function with perennial grass, will stabilize the environment and the climate to decide what else we need to do. But until we do that, it's really going to be tough. And this is based on sort of my experience and being on Johann Zeitzman's WhatsApp group and things like that. In every environment around the planet that I look at that is not rainforest or like, or Tasmanian sort of um, temperate rainforest, there's always a combination of recovery, stock density, and plant utilization that creates landscape function, ground cover, perennial grass, and slight decomposition of the litter. Just haven't seen any of those things. But what we do is we put in the range of safe to fails, always include at least one at 12 months. Out at Cobar and other areas like that, it's going to be 18 months to 24 months, depending on how the seasons are running. But for all the inside country that gets a season every year, rainfall and a growing season every year, 12 months will give you those conditions very quickly, within 1 to 2 years, if you do them at those settings. So I think that's fantastic news. People that don't have an agricultural background just think that's spectacular. Do you know, like secondary school kids and things like that? Within 1 to 2 years, you can do this at Somaliland. You can do it wherever. But you've got to, the harder the environment, the less frequent the rainfall, you've got to ramp the stock density up, and it can take longer if you're not having a season every year. Is that all right? I really, oh, I'm not sure I changed this. Is that working for you? Can you hear that?
Can't hear it.
I might just go in. I think I forgot to hit share sound as I usually do. So this was a shift, not yesterday, the day before. Try not to limp. Steady, please.
So that's a tape up inside their ground, is it?
Yeah, I put a tape there. I'd already grazed that, and then they broke out and got over onto the island. So I grazed the island, and then I grazed the other side of this paddock. So they would have had to have come over this grass that had started growing again. And also because just outside that gate, I'm turning them hard left. And if you turn them hard left, all those calves had run down the inside of the fence, not the outside, couldn't go through the gate. So it was just to make it easier. So, but I thought I was very funny. Did you hear me say, try not to limp to the cow that was limping? So I thought I was hysterical. So, and then when I said steady, please, and they all slowed down, I go, oh, I think I'm the cow whisperer now, some sort of guru. But yeah, they really scattered and went very fast into the fresh paddock, and it was like a real pinch point down here. And I go, oh, that needs a bit of a redesign. But 2 or 3 calves ran on this side of the fence, but generally they all went well. So I've been flying the drone over it, where they were, where I was shifting them, all that. Well, you can only fly the drone on the weekends because the roulettes are always training in Southwest Victoria. We got this has slipped. We got the results back. UQ is doing a soil carbon, University of Queensland's doing a soil carbon trial, trying to lower the cost of the soil carbon, and we were just one of the lab rats for them. But it was really interesting that so this is sort of, I'm grazing down here, but the graphs, the pictures slipped for some reason. And this is sort of loose rotation where Jared grazes up here. So that gives you an idea. I'm down here. So we had far more surface carbon. I'm still trying to process this. I haven't had a chance to talk to Jared about it. But this is this is going really well. Heaps of surface carbon for the farm, and very low levels up here in the top of the driveway where you come in the gate. I was thinking for those that have been to the Temple of Sustainability. It's trying not to say it. Geez, I'm hopeless. It's like, think it, say it. So yeah, so down here looks pretty good and healthy. This is where I was grazing and shifting them from in those things. Down deeper, so the 30 to 60 centimeters, all the carbon's back up in the real dry sandy hills. And I just don't understand how that can be the case. So we've got soil cores. I just need to look at them more, and we've got photos of all the cores, and you can use color as a bit of a proxy, and just going to go through it and just try and work out what's going on. And it's confirmed, and this is from 60 to down to a meter, so 60 to 100 centimeters. And it was the same. This had better deep carbon than down here. Yeah, and we were trying to talk about why that could possibly be. But just so that you know, we're doing those sort of things if you want to ask and stuff. Just quickly, I haven't had a chance to look at your figures, Rob. Hey, Kirsten, hey, Spiky. But I'll just try and sort of skim through. I had a skim through. So the headings I really liked, and it was in bullet points. And the rest period is too short. Buy or lease more land, put in more irrigation or reduce herd size. The lowest cost, lowest risk thing out of those ones is to reduce the herd size. There'd have to be a really good business case for buying or leasing more land. And also, can you get land close to you? And I see that you're going to lease some more. Irrigation lacking, again, that's a higher risk, higher cost thing to do than reducing herd size. The landscape function is sort of linked to that herd size and the recovery periods. So, I think that we need to increase that resilience. You're sort of on that sort of the sort of land you're on. It really needs a lot of carbon in it for it to be resilient. And I'd be thinking, how can I do that? How can I do that? Then, I agree. The confidence in landscape function, you've really got to demonstrate it, don't you? And it's really quite hard work. So, and it's just just how you're going to do it. I've always done, the Centrelink sort of professional advice and planning grants, and they've called it different things. But typically, we could increase profits by reducing stocking rate. So most farms would increase their profits. There's research out. I can't remember if I sent it to you, Rob. Out of the New Zealand dairy research by the economists and stuff, showing that if they reduce I can't remember, I think they reduced the herd size by 5% and increased the profit by 15%. So
yeah, you did send that. I read that information. It's not really up to me. That's the problem. But we are leasing some more land and getting more irrigation. The lands that we're leasing is an hour and a half away, so I don't know how that's going to go. But we'll see, I guess.
So I saw you had some other workers when you were putting in the water pipe and stuff. Maybe you can send them. So
yeah, maybe.
Where is it? I can't find it. I'll come to it. So yeah, I put the photos in. safe to fail trial. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, just one question with the confidence thing. I really feel like it would help if I could talk to a dairy farmer. Um, I think when you actually visited that time, you mentioned there was someone who was shifting his cows 4 times a day, maybe in Victoria or something. Um, can you do you know about that?
Yeah, yeah. I was just looking at Celia, um, or trying to look at Celia. It's like hard to see who you're looking at. But yeah,
I've
I've
texted
been.
Matthew.
All right, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Matthew Butler's sort of been through the safe to fail trials, then he expanded it to his oh God, the words aren't coming tonight. I'm too tired. The dairy heifers, the retained heifers, and he then grazed them at high density, and then he's gone to the farm. And yeah, they think it's fantastic. So we'll just wait for him to come back and then pass his details. Unless you know Matthew Butler. Do you know Matthew?
No, no, I don't know him, but I may be going to Victoria sometime this year, probably before calving starts. So yeah, I don't know if he'd be happy for us to come and have a look or not.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah, definitely do that. It's
yeah,
a house and stuff. So um, yeah, because one of the key moves is that first morning move. That's why I say there's a house and stuff, because it's where you assess the day. So what do they look like first thing in the morning? Oh, okay, I'm going to have to move them more frequently. So, um, yeah. So just back onto this. So have you got a measure of the milk urea nitrogen, which is what MUN stands for everyone? Have you do you
uh,
get a do you get that from the dairy factory?
no, we don't get that. We do herd testing once a month, and they don't test for that. But I think I mentioned to you when you visited that there was actually a consultant that tried to take some samples from us and send them in and figure out what our MUN was for every month from the start of calving, or the start of spring, basically. Um, but my dad forgot to take the samples, so I'll try to organise that again.
Because yeah, for everyone, the mechanism is if the grass is too young, it's got too much non-protein nitrogen, which ends up as blood urea nitrogen in the cow, and then ends up in the milk as milk urea nitrogen. So recently, they've been talking about giving kids dairy at 6 months or something, and it was all causing a kerfuffle, and it was on the health report. And I wanted to make contact with Norman Swan and say to him, milk's not milk. So, if you have grass that's too young, it's going to have too much nitrates in it because they know that giving certain dairy milk to kids ends up with more obesity if you start them too early on dairy. And I think it's to do with that milk urea nitrogen. But do you get scours in the calves? If you do, then the MUN's too high. So,
Yeah, that's a big problem for us, like a pretty big problem. Yeah.
and I work with dairy farmers that they end up buying powdered milk to feed their calves because their own milk's too toxic for their calves, but they're still sending it into the into the food chain. So, but no one's telling them what the cause of it is. I had a dairy group at Haywood in Southwest Victoria, and I asked them had they worked out that there was a link between sex and pregnancy, and they were looking at me funny. I go, because you don't seem to be able to do cause and effect, because they give them grass that was too young, which results in blood urea nitrogen too young, which would cause hoof problems. But instead of giving them older grass, they'd go and grade the track. So that showed no link between what was happening and what the corrective action was. And other people I've said it's a bit like if the car won't start or turn over, checking the air in the tires to see what the pressure is. There's no link at all. And lots of people struggle. And I go, and it's a clear line of sight for me. Give them older grass or give them straw or hay that's low in protein to mop up all that blood urea nitrogen so that they don't get feet or high blood urea nitrogen or milk urea nitrogen.
But that's absolutely not what we're taught as dairy farmers. It's not what we're told by anybody. It's a revelation to most.
Yeah, and it is hard to, as I mentioned before to you, Graham, it is hard for us to get them to eat the straw or hay when they're in, when it's springtime and the grass is too young, but they still much prefer to eat that grass than the hay. And I was thinking maybe we could feed it to them on the laneways or something, but they'd make a massive mess. So it'd have to be some kind of feed pad situation or something. But if I could find someone who's successfully doing that, that would really help. But
successfully feeding them older grass and then not have to do the straw and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's hard. I mean, I'd prefer to do that, but the problem is, like, I'm not the main decision maker, and so if we're not going to change our business model to do that, I'd at least like to feed some hay or straw, and in order to do that, we probably have to do it on the laneways. And I'd just like to talk to someone who's feeding hay and straw in the springtime and talk to them about how they're actually doing it, because we're kind of struggling to do that. They just leave it there.
Yeah. So I would make sure that the chief decision makers, if we organise to go to Matthews or something, that you take them with them. I would have thought that would be the biggest thing you could do, so that my experience is that your dad and stuff are really good if they can look at people and talk to them and make sense when he can question and stuff. So I think that'd be well worth taking him along. So I don't think this is sort of the weak link at the moment. The thing that would make more money would be to do something about that whole stocking rate landscape function, and that'd be what I'd focus on and be trying to do this. Like if it was expensive to update your computer software, I'd be trying to put in just a simple procedure so that the staff know that they've got any cows that they've missed. But I understand the difficulty and stuff and having people work for you and things. So I tried it and didn't like it.
I was really just trying to think of product issues, because there's the product weak link, and then there's the what was it?
So the resource, the product, and the marketing.
And it is hard to train staff to do that, because especially in the morning, like they can let cows off that aren't milked and they'll just walk away and you probably won't know. But I agree with you. The other things are much more important.
So I'll move on. That was the photo I was looking for with the workers on the farm. Must be much easier, Rob, doing some work when you've got that many helpers, I thought. So
in theory they're helpers.
So just a question from Dominica about gut-filled drinking scores and just those indicators of animal performance and ready to move. Is the night paddock big enough and all that sort of stuff, so that they don't have empty ruminants? So it really is a bit learning by doing. But I always used to let people have animals with a little bit of low gut fill, and if the grass is fully recovered, you've got to keep them full and full, really good gut fill and really good dung scores. So if you want animal performance, and there's always, you know, like I've got this whole range of Jared's daughter Leah came down with her baby yesterday, and I said these big girls are really hard to fill up. You know, some of these Herefords and stuff. She goes, "Oh, you wouldn't get to say that very often in public." So I go, "Oh, yeah." So Leah was saying that yeah, she could see it. So our cows are bulging, like they've got bulging rumens, and these ones are still struggling, you know, on the same day. So you're trying to keep that triangle there full. I'll grab the pointer so that you can really see it. You're trying to keep that area full on the left-hand side. It's called the paralumbar fossa. So that's got to be straight through, pretty smooth. So you know that they've got enough in them. It relies on good water. So you've got to observe them drinking. They should go up and drink fully, you know, which is about 70 glugs. They should go up. At the moment where we are, they're going around and sniffing the water, but I haven't got any options down where they are, down right down near the lake. So of any other water, but they'll be off it by the time I get back on the weekend. So yeah, so you need to make sure they've got good water, they're drinking deeply, they're walking to it. Our cows just really, if it gets over about 200 meters, they're Suki Southern cattle, and they will not walk. You know, like some of them will, and others just will not. And all of ours go up in little mobs and come back. They never all go together. If they all go together, I know I've run them out of grass because you know I'm stripping away from them like that. And if they all come back, I know they've run out of grass. When I was in Southwest Victoria on a farm called Inverary, I used to tell this story. You know, the kids had their licenses and they'd come in and say, "Dad, those cows need a shift. You know, Dad, those cows need a shift. Dad, those cows need a shift. Graham, those cows need a shift." So the whole family knew that they needed a shift, but their corrective action was to come and tell Dad. So I thought that was pretty funny. I used to say, "You didn't think to do it on the way down the drive?" Yeah, but they just, "Oh, Dad, you're so silly." So you really need to keep them full. You really need to, if you're not getting the animal performance, so dairy cows that are on grain or animals that are on that really young grass, they can have lower gut fills because they're actually sort of a bit squirty anyway. They can't keep anything in them. So, but when they're on mature grass that needs to sit in their rumens and ruminate and be processed, they've got to have full guts and they've got to drink really well and they've got to have that good dung score. So this is okay. This is lower performance, but good animal health. This is where you get really poor animal health and metabolic diseases and scours in lambs and calves. So I'm not sure that's answered. Is there any questions, Dominica, Charlie, Kate? That's all right. Good.
I do have a question. Sorry.
Yes. Where are you? Oh, there you are. I've only got the one.
That last number 5, I think, and the dung scores. I think you mentioned that sort of 3, 4, 5 are good for animal health, but 4 or 5 are not great for performance. And I just wanted to check in on 5, what the sort of implications are with a dung score of 5, because we definitely had a few of those around over summer.
Yeah, definitely. So there's always a bit of a range of the animals each day you go out, as you well know. But once you get to too much fiber and not enough protein, which would typically people would be reaching for some sort of protein supplement, the rumen actually can't process it well enough. So, and the bugs in the rumen don't have enough protein to multiply enough to process the feed. So you're starting to run it too lean, is what I say to the men. They sort of get that as a carburetor analogy or whatever. So this is too rich, too much protein. This is too low in protein. So you really you can shift them to somewhere that's greener. You can tough it out and make them go through it, but you will get damage to the animal performance if you start doing that. So the corrective action was, so I used to have people come and sort of do a live-in training thing where I'd stay down the beach at Port Fairy and they'd be on the farm, and I'd leave them to it. And that was the biggest issue in summer. It used to be always be in summer. It was good. So good for me. And then I'd just sort of say, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to do a rumen supplement, which costs money? Are we going to look for another area that's fully recovered, but that's got some green understory in it? Yeah. So, and then I'd get them to try and work harder, increase the stock density and increase the frequency of the moves. If that didn't work, we then tended to shift to an area that was fully recovered but had green understory. So we would take that as corrective action. So, and come back and get this dry, because we're on that long recovery, we'd come back and get that dry after it had rained and it had some young stuff in it. So
yeah, that's what we did. We shifted them to an area that still has some green, and that's kind of informing our plan for next year. It's like they won't be in this section, after December. But just picking up on something you said at the very beginning, it's to see a few of those on a day. Like if you're seeing a range of them, don't stress too much. But if they're all looking like that,
you're really just looking at, you're looking sort of for the average, really. What would you say the average was? But look at those others. If I get, ones with chronic diarrhea that, I suspect they've had sort of like liver damage or whatever, then I'll sell them, So if they don't fit, don't get with the program, they get sort of moved on. So because otherwise you manage for the really poor doers, or the chronic diarrheas, or the ones that are always struggling to process. So so this was a question on Johan Zeitsman's WhatsApp group. Should he be selecting replacement heifers from cows that had got pregnant again, because he had no information? And so Johan just replied, and I just love the simplicity of it. You don't need to select heifers. You need to select bulls that are born to your most fertile cows. Culling females has little effect on increasing fertility, genetically determined fertility. Bull selection will determine the way forward. So I've got a rule of thumb running in my head. I will only use bulls now that produce better cows than the cows they came out of. And I reckon I've spent 20 years with bulls that didn't produce calves that were as good as their mothers. So there's a mitochondrial DNA thing where the cow has more impact on the calf than the bull does, but you still need these bulls that are going to make better cows. So so that's why I'm doing more AI and doing that. I was just going to quickly do this, and I've lost track of the time. 6:40. I used to teach rural marketing with Jeff Watson from Sydney University, Orange Act. And he came up with this idea of the commodity arena where you're selling just into the pool, either into the sale yards, the grain pool or whatever. The contract arena where you're committed to produce something on a certain date. Like you'll have a truckload of lambs on the middle of September. and they'll be this weight and this fat. So it's really hard to hit. And then the branded product arena. And this is where you're delivering direct to a consumer. So you could be a stud or a meat producer or whatever, but you're responsible for everything. This one, you can usually sell them. Like last year, we couldn't. All the abattoirs got too full, especially down south and in Tasmania. But this one doesn't necessarily make more money. And that's a really hard idea for people, because what it does is, and I've seen this a lot, the branded product arena where you're actually selling your product direct to consumers, you've got to have eliminated the rainfall risk. Because what otherwise people do is say, I'm going to sell 10 cattle. I was going to say bodies, and I don't know whether that's okay or not, but that's the way we talk about them. So 10 bodies for the branded product, and then you're growing them out and putting more fat on them, and it goes dry, and you've allocated them to that business, and people won't sell them. They won't get out of them, even if it's gone dry. So they hold them and increase their rainfall risk when it's gone dry. So you've got to be able to do really, the further down you get from commodity, the better you are. Got to know that I'll have them finished, that I'll have enough feed, that they'll have the right weight, or fatness for my meat business. So can you see that people sort of then overdo the budget and then they hold them too much? So I've been trying to say to people, when you're starting, like this is with cattle, sell the steers at weaning, and then join the heifers. The ones that don't get in calf, go to your meat business, fatten them, put them into the meat business, and start slowly like that. So it's quite hard for people to manage. And then I noticed that some people don't understand about this refrigerated stuff. So once you've delivered the lamb or the sheep or the cattle to the abattoir, it's now in the food chain. So it's got to be under regulations and QA from that point forward. So if you're transferring it, it's got to be in a registered meat transport vehicle. If you're delivering it to people, it's got to be that. And you usually need to have temperature loggers and insurance. And in Victoria, Victorians are very tightly wound. I think I can say that because I am one. I was going to say anal. There you go. Think it, say it. The rules and regulations are much different in Victoria than they are in New South Wales and Tasmania. But this is the reason I put this photo in. This is for this guy's Belted Galloway beef. Is he's got a registered meat transport vehicle that he's registered with Prime Safe. So, and it's usually got a different name in each state, but you've got to hit the regulations, because otherwise, if someone gets crook, and it doesn't matter whether it was your fault or the abattoirs or whatever, if you've got somewhere, if you're the weak link in that cold chain, they will come for you. So you've got to have your records good. You've got to have all that. You've got to have product liability insurance, all those things as well. So I was just sort of doing that. This is Kirsten. For your question about is there enough land, I was going to try and write something. I never got to it. I had 3 webinars in a row. But the argument that we won't have enough land to shift to grass-fed is unconvincing, or something I was going to try and write as a little heading, because I like it when the scientists and the economists and that, the argument that sort of if you reduce the amount of nitrogen fertilizer, you'll make less money is unconvincing. So is what they say. So most of this article, so I'll try and attach the articles as well, but from Meg Chapman, and but most of it seems to be based on Alan Williams' So when I read it, I go, oh, it sounds like she sourced it from that. So that'd be the one I'd read, Scaling Grass-Fed Beef by Alan Williams. He doesn't focus on increasing landscape function. So some of the stocking rates and things like that is like, fingernails on the blackboard for me. But so it's only an approximation. But if you switch the current cropping land that's used to feed animals, not people, to pasture or grassland in America, there would be enough to easily feed half of the total meat production there. So it's really, you can do more when he does it. You can do more than that, but you've got to be careful when you read that the photo's a bit of a giveaway that they're not increasing landscape function. There's bare ground you can see, and that looks some sort of legume nonsense to me. So, in case people didn't realize I don't like legumes. So just ridiculous. Not good for soil health. Leaks nitrates into the waterways, which cause blue baby syndrome and cancer. Otherwise, it's all good. And then I really like this article. I'd seen this in Sacred Cow before, that cattle around the planet mainly eat food that's not edible by humans. So crop residue, grasses, all that sort of stuff. I think we need to expand the grass and less of this sort of stuff. But anyway, very little of it. And the thing that I liked here, it was that so 1 kilogram of meat it requires 2.8 kilos of human edible feed for ruminants and 3.2 for the pigs and the chooks. So pigs and chooks eat more food that's fit for humans than cattle do, because they eat these things that the pigs and chooks can't live on. So the ruminants, I believe we could run them much better than what we currently do. That's on the current figures. But the problem with everyone is they go, oh, well, they ate this much, to put on a kilo of meat, but most of it isn't human edible. And also, it's very hard, and I upset sort of other people in other groups when I go, can you send me photos of your regenerative pigs? Because I haven't seen that yet. And I try and do it really low energy, but Jesus, it upsets people. Like and then shots fired. So, everyone gets really anti me rather than, well, if it's got bare ground, it's eroding. So, and the same with too much chickens as well. I think we're going to have to get off pigs and chooks. So, but which is completely the opposite of where everyone's going. So, we're eating more and more chook and more pig. So, meat is really important for nutrients. I'll keep moving just to make sure I get through some stuff. But yeah, I'll put that in, and if you can't read it, I'll grab the paper for you as well. So yell out. But meat provides more nutrient than a lot of other food, but it's sort of not liked. And then I couldn't get this paper down, but it was behind a paywall. But we already grow enough food for 10 people and still can't end hunger. So it's to do with the way we think about other countries and other people, and sort of our inability to realize if some people don't feel safe and secure, then none of us are going to be safe and secure. So this was what I was getting to. He's still on, Spikey. The 10-month-old, I think, was a question at some stage. Oops, there's some chat questions.
Not questions. I'll get that article for you.
Okay, thank you. So this was, I think it was 10-month-old. I couldn't find the thing and went up. Yeah. So I haven't got the other one. Oh, damn it. I needed to put them side by side. This has got far more purple, far more gold, and much higher numbers in the in the green because these animals. So when people eat, they're looking at tenderness, juiciness, and flavor. In the model, we've overweighted tenderness because tenderness was always the variable that upset people. We actually found that it gave a more accurate result if I can't remember. So we do tenderness, juiciness, flavor, and overall liking. So juiciness, flavor, and overall liking all got 20, and tenderness got 40. So, it was like that sort of thing. So we weighted it so that people, when they first start eating, if it was tender, they would go tick and love it. As they ate more, especially the chefs and things, they'd want more juiciness and flavor. So it was really, I think, to do with, what the population's expectations were, because we'd see it change over time. So I don't know whether it has or not. But yeah, so I'll put that in. But that
Which one's
sort of,
the slow cook column?
yeah,
Sorry, I'm just thinking it's grill, roast,
yeah, stir fry,
stir fry.
thin slice, which is 2 mils through a slicing wheel, and you've got to freeze it down. You can't actually cut it thin enough with a knife. Some of the Japanese guys could, but generally there wasn't Australian butchers that could. And then slow cook, and then corn. Remember, I was saying the cutoff for mine was about 55 points. So the strip loin, so this is the near the rump, is well and truly over 55. So, these are spectacular. If you give people that are used to eating, this was pre-MSA, all the meats got better. But if you gave them something that was in that 4-star, which is the purple, it was a wow. They go, oh, they couldn't believe it. And they go, oh, that's like that steak that we had, remember? They would always, it was like their reference point for the rest of their life. The reference point for the rest of their life was that first one that they'd eaten a 4-star. And typically it was sort of, 65, 67. So it's that sort of impact it has on people. The rump would eat as a rump steak, whereas mine, remember, was going to go as a roast. It would be one of the best roasts you've ever had. So the knuckle would go as a steak.
So what's happening with those lower ones? Like why are they no good at those top side?
Yeah, so it's to do with so the top side, the outside flat sort of, which is the silver side, we'd call the top side the inside. It was their position on the body or their purpose on the body. So there's 2 types of muscles generally. There's the locomotor ones, the ones that move all the time, and then there's the structural ones. So the reason the tenderloin is so always so tender is because it's on the inside of the spine and it controls turnout. So on the animals, so I'd always say, unless you had ballet dancing cattle, it just didn't do anything. It sort of holds the animal up rather than drives the animal. And the more they drive those locomotor muscles, the tougher they get. So I want to stand up, point to them on my body, because that was what I always did. So your rounds on the front, the front of your thigh there, that knuckle, it does a fair bit of work. The insides on the inside of your thigh, so high up on the inside of your thigh, or the top side, is up high on there. And then the outside flat, which is our name for the silver sides, that muscle on the back of your leg, and they're all driver muscles. So that's why they don't eat as, they've got to be cooked to get them tender and stuff. So
they're not going to be good on a 10-month-old or a 3-year-old or anything really, because they're just in use from the beginning.
Yep. And I just, and the butchers would say to me, "Oh, I've had some good topside steaks," and then I'd say, "Oh, yeah, most people don't live long enough." So, do you know, if we hit anything below 50, and I think I said this last time, we just found that, if there was men and women, half the women would fail it if it was below 50 as a bit chewy. Oh, it was okay. Do you know, it was like that sort of face. How was it? Oh, it was okay. Do you know, so they didn't enjoy it at all. So you want them to go, wow. And I'm saying with the combination of how you grow them, how fat they are, and then selecting what will get them to go, wow, this meat's always good. That's the way to have a brand that people come back to, because we have extra costs. They've got to freeze it or hold it or get it, when it's ready, not when they can just go and pick it up each night stuff. So there is other costs in doing it, doing that. I think that was oh yeah, that was all. I was going to go on to something about this, but I'll send this as well. This is from Seth Godden. I really liked it. So it I'd had an argument within another group that nearly popped a hose doing it. And so I see them, they're either professionals or foolish. So most of that group that I work with, none of them are flexible. And none of them are polite about their curiosity. So even when they don't know anything. So, polite flex. So they're not there. They're not there because they don't like any change or the way I think. So they're either there or there, and I'm suspecting that most of them are to the left in the top left-hand quadrant. So, so I sent it to the group and just said I found this interesting. It just came across my desk, but I was sort of trying to, try and work out where I think you are. So, yeah, very good. How was that? There you all are. Is that all right? Any comments or questions? And I'll send those so that you can see the numbers, Kirsten, and Spikey with that. And
I was going to say we're having enormous trouble getting the mobile butcher out, so I might need you to do another one for a 14-month-old.
I like this. I'm not supposed to have like the model. I have to sign to say that I'd returned it all. So, but it's out of date. Like they now know that modified atmosphere packaging actually impacts eating quality. It reduces eating quality. So a lot of those sort of things, that it's sort of, and they've gone to, it's drilled down. It's a bit more accurate and stuff, but it gives you a really good way. It works. So.
Sorry, what's the modified packaging?
Trays that have got the clear plastic, tight as a drum, plastic coating on them. There'll be a plastic tray about that deep, and it's got clear, and then the meat will be sitting in it, and it never goes grey or brown from the oxygen and the myoglobin. It's the reaction on that meat surface and stuff. It always stays, and it's I can't remember what it is now, but they take all the oxygen out and fill it with nitrogen or whatever, and now they know it reduces the eating quality. So
I think they do that for salad greens, don't they? They fill it up with something else, and they look great. And you open the packet, and they turn to slime within about 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's the ones. Sometimes I reckon they've had bananas. Like, how come it changed? Like they're black by the time you get them home. So but there's a whole thing too that I keep saying. There's a lot of people, the truck driver wants you to empty the animals out so it doesn't dirty his truck. We know that reduces eating quality if you empty them out for 24 hours or whatever. Going to the sale yards reduces eating quality. Packaging them like that. I go, the only reason we grow so many of these things is to eat them. But we seem to find any reason not to worry about it. So, very good. Thanks, everyone. Hope that was all right.
Thank you very much, Graham.
Thank you.
Information. I'm going to put my arguments together and,
Yeah.
Keep it lively.
Yeah. And you understand why I threw the 10 billion thing in as well, don't you? So, you know, it's not we're not going to starve if we start saving the planet. The opposite's true, you know. And I have this thing that what's going to kill us is that conventional agriculture either has a boom or a bust. So if we have a run of booms and then a bust, and we breed up, and then we have a bust, that's when it'll all come apart. I think that will be the really big issue. So nice, stable, moderate production that's restoring, our life support system. Yeah, I don't see why it's a discussion, but I might have been doing it for too long or just got too old. So
I was thinking it's that, when you bring in a new idea, first of all, you're ridiculed or attacked or whatever. And and then they kind of, we understand what you're talking about, but it's not going to work. They talked about those different stages of changing people's thinking. And I thought, this is one of those responses to where they're acknowledging we've got a good idea, and it's like, but we'll just sort of try and undermine it a bit or something.
It's pretty amazing. I remember reading about the sort of the kickback from I think it was a female scientist who said that surgeons should be washing their hands before surgery, and that was going to result in a lot better patient outcomes. And there was quite a lot of resistance to that for a really long time.
Yeah. He actually committed suicide in a mental asylum because they drove him crazy. So I think they're getting to me. So yeah, I used to put that slide up, Kirsten, when I was at the DPI in Victoria, because they, ridicule, ignore, do that other thing, and then change its name and adopt it was the last one on the slide I had. And I used to put it up and say, where are you up to? Because it was usually when they were doing the ridicule and stuff that I'd put it up, and they didn't like it, so. Very good. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thank
Yes,
you.
Okey
thank you.
dokey. See
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye all.
Bye. Oh, Spiky,
Yeah.
do you have I got your blue chopping board from the farm walk day?
Yeah, probably.
Been sitting here and I keep meaning to text you and I keep forgetting.
Just trying to. I did have a chopping board between the trays, so probably.
So
Yeah. Hey. That's why logistics have been difficult in the kitchen for a while.
Well, I shall bring it to you at some stage, or if you're coming past, or whichever.
Awesome. Do you happen to have access to that journal journal article that Graham was wanting now? If I can, I didn't write it down quick enough.
Oh, what was it? What was it about roughly?
It was one of those articles that he said, but the one he couldn't get to because it was a paywall. Something about feeding billions of people, Journal of Agriculture.
I shall get I didn't write it down either.
That's all right. I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't quick. It'll come through on his slides because he had it up. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, so have the title from there.
Awesome. I shall look it up. All right.
Cool. All right. See you, Spiky. Rob,
Yeah.
Oh, it came through, Matthew's contact details?
Yep, I've got that. Thanks for that.
No worries at
That's
all.
great. Yep.
All right. Okay.
No worries. I'll see you next week.
All right, lovely. See you, Rob. Bye.